Team 5, please come on down.
Okay. All right, hi everyone, and thank you again for joining us for today's Dow Symposium. My name is Maddie Parrish, and I am a dual degree student in both Ross and C's, and I'm joined today by my project teammates. We are so excited today to share with you our learnings from our project this year with Dow, which is called Cultivating Success, a comprehensive review of the Nature Conservancy's Sustainable Option Wheat Program in Saginaw Bay, Michigan. This is our wonderful team, and I'll ask them all to introduce themselves quickly.
So I'm Jacob Erber, so it means I'm doing an MBA and an MS in sustainability here at Michigan.
Hi, I'm Taylor Keeley. I'm a EJ student at C's. Thank you.
I'm Emily Alexander. I'm also an environmental justice student at C's.
Hi, I'm Maya Cote, and I'm in the School of Public Health in the Nutritional Sciences Department.
Awesome, so a rock star team, and we also had a rock star partner. So we worked together this year with the Nature Conservancy's Michigan chapter and Star of the West Milling Company, which are both based in Saginaw Bay, just a couple hours north of here. We also had the opportunity to work with key stakeholders across the wheat supply chain, which included everything from major consumer packaged goods companies such as Post and WK Kellogg, which is actually Kellogg's for those who don't know. They went through a merger recently. And then we also worked with local state agencies such as the Michigan's Department of Agricultural and Rural Development. Now, over the past year, we've supported TNC on a new pay-for-performance sustainable wheat initiative that they launched in 2021 in the Saginaw Bay watershed. This program is called the Nature-Based Solutions Sustainable Option Wheat Program, and it was designed with the goal of building a more resilient U.S. food system. Now, TNC asked us to answer two key questions throughout the year. One was, what are the learnings thus far for the program? It's been in process for 2 years, so we wanted to capture those. And then two, is it feasible for the program to be scaled beyond central Michigan and even countrywide, really? The program encourages farmers and then incentivizes them to take on a specific set of sustainable agricultural practices when they're growing their wheat. To participate in the program, farmers have to adopt new practices such as reduced tillage, using cover crops, and even using edge of field buffers, which you can see here from the photos. Now, Saginaw Bay watershed is 5.5 million acres, which you can see from this picture, and not all of it is for cultivated crops, but it definitely is a tall task to ask to create sustainable wheat in this area. There were 4 main goals for this project. Number 1 was to test a sustainable standards program over 6,000 wheat acres. The second one was to reduce sediment and nutrient loss, and the third was to reduce over 5,000 tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. But ultimately, the biggest goal was to demonstrate a replicable business model for this type of incentive program that could be scaled. Now, the program model is pretty complex, but we wanted to walk you through how it works. It's based on a financial funding mechanism that goes from the grower through the process all the way to the end buyer. So it's a really cyclical process. So it starts with the wheat grower. They join TNC's program. They take on and adopt new sustainable agricultural practices, and then they grow and harvest that sustainable wheat, which is now labeled as sustainable since they use those practices. They then sell that wheat to the wheat processor, which in this case is Star of the West Milling Company. They process the wheat, turn it into flour, and sell it to the end buyer, which is, in this case, an example is WK Kellogg, which makes cereal products like Frosted Flakes, which we all love, especially me from Battle Creek. And they then call it sustainable wheat product. The Frosted Flakes are sustainable. However, what is different in this model is that there's an incentive mechanism for the grower. So the end buyer, WK Kellogg, is paying for a price premium for the sustainable wheat. So they're basically paying a higher price for the sustainable wheat, and then that incentive flows through to the grower. And it's important to note that this is done at the point of sale so that we can really incentivize the farmers to continue doing these sustainable practices. Now, to answer the 2 big questions TNC proposed us with, we knew we had to take 2 different methodologies. So one was find out as much information as possible from the current stakeholders involved. And this photo shows you all the stakeholders involved from farmer to sustainability collaborator. There's many of them involved in the wheat value chain just here in Saginaw Bay. We spoke to all of them. And then we also did an economic analysis, which included a market analysis and sizing for the white winter wheat market in Michigan. And then we also looked at program feasibility, did an assessment on scalability, and research comparative cases that we could utilize for our recommendations. That ultimately led to 3 big deliverables. One was a summary of all of our interview stakeholders from the past 2 years, and then also the market analysis, which includes the market opportunity for Central Michigan, the state of Michigan, and the Midwest region. And the last one was a set of strategic recommendations for our client for scaling the program in the future. I'm going to pass it over to Jacob now to talk about key learnings.
All right, so these are the key learnings from the stakeholders that we interviewed. So we interviewed 3 main groups, the wheat growers, or the farmers, the processor, the Star of the West grain mill, and then the end buyer. So these are the consumer packaged goods companies, the Kellogg's, the Posts, the General Mills of the world, as well as some grocery retail. And so main takeaways, on the farmer side, there's a big concern about additionality in this program. So additionality is the concept that for each year you're in this program, you need to intensify your practices in order to remain eligible to continue receiving funding. And so with that, that has a high, or it can have a high financial burden. And as it is now, farmers don't believe the incentive is enough to justify continually intensifying, adding new sustainable practices. For the grain mill, they were also experienced administrative burden in terms of collecting and managing the data from farmers, actually verifying that they're engaging in the practices that they say they are doing. And then they're also concerned about commitments from the brands, right? So right now, this is a grant-funded program. What happens when that money runs out? Where's the funding going to come from? And to that point, the consumer packaged goods companies, while they've said, yes, consumers want sustainable product, they've also expressed that they're not willing to pay for sustainable agriculture initiatives unless it directly benefits them. In this case, it would be helping them advance their own climate commitments. So there's this concept called MRV, measurement, reporting, and verification. Basically, that's third-party verification that these companies are, that these practices are reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And so that's really what they're interested in. Next, we did a market analysis to figure out where can this program expand where it is now from the Saginaw Bay of Michigan into the broader geography of winter wheat production, which is the particular type of wheat used for cereal production. So basically, this is what's called a SOM-SAM-TAM model. Starting out with the smallest circle, this is what is immediately capturable. Moving up, that's like where can you expand within the next 5-10 years? And then the biggest circle, the total addressable market, would be if you were to expand across all of the market, what would that look like? Typically, this is used for like revenues, but because the purpose of this is environmental benefit, we focus on the acres of winter wheat production. And so what's notable here, Central Michigan is highly attractive for the immediate expansion of this program. Saginaw Bay is already in Central Michigan, but if you expand beyond, just beyond those few counties, that's actually the heart of Michigan wheat production. Then moving beyond that, if you were to expand across the state of Michigan, that's 600,000 acres. What's notable here is that outside Central Michigan, Southeast Michigan, where we're at right now, is the second hub of wheat production in Michigan. And then lastly, if you were to expand across all the Midwest, we're looking at 3 million acres. The other thing to keep in mind here is that there are grain mills operating in each of these regions. Some of them are operating in multiple regions at once. So you can think about those as launching points to recruit new farmers into the program. And then lastly, we developed recommendations based on timelines, so short, medium, and long term. So in the short term, we recommended for the Nature Conservancy to integrate those low-hanging fruit feedback we received from our stakeholders, as well as completing a pricing analysis to figure out what is that exact dollar amount that's going to motivate farmers. And then having conversations with Star of the West and with those other grain mills I alluded to figure out what would it mean or what would it look like for them to take over this program in the future. In the medium term, so the next couple years, really need to look at structurally changing the program to address those bigger concerns. So for instance, the consumer packaged goods companies that want to be able to say, hey, we reduced our carbon emissions by X amount, That means that we're going to have to look into measurement reporting and verification, third parties, and like developing a system to make that happen, as well as exploring other incentives for farmers. So not just the direct payment, but other trainings, consultations, maybe helping farmers adopt or purchase equipment to help them implement these practices. And then lastly, in the long term, this would be scaling it beyond Michigan. So having conversations with grain mills in not just in Michigan, but Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, the big wheat production states, as well as considering alternative funding methods. The USDA has a lot of money for climate smart commodities that are still rolling out. So that's a huge opportunity to continue to bring money into this project. And then lastly, so these are the impacts of the project. So currently the program has sequestered about 3 gigatons of carbon dioxide. And in 2024, they're enrolling 15 farmers, which is a 125% increase. So you can see that there's definitely potential going. And then on the bottom, these are the impacts that our work has had directly on the Sustainable Option Wheat Program. So to help them prove out the feasibility and long-term potential of this project. And we've also, our work has helped justify within the Nature Conservancy continuing this project and is currently leading to new grant applications. Lastly, I just want to thank all of our advisors, partners, and everyone who made this happen at the Graham Institute. So thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, questions, folks? Yes, since I didn't let you last time, go ahead.
Yeah, great presentation. I actually had a couple of questions. One was the first part about additionality. Do you mean to say that for every year they need to increase their practices in terms of sustainability to keep getting money? Because that seems unintuitive. That's one. And the second one is the 3 gigatons. They've already done that because that's a big number. Like you would get a lot of money to sequester 3 gigatons if you can prove that.
Absolutely. So addressing both of those questions, the first question, they've established 7 practices that they consider contributing to regenerative or sustainable agriculture. Farmers need to implement a minimum of 3 of those practices in order to enroll in the program, and then to continue in the program for a second or third year, which has a coupling of further financial incentives. They need to add those additional practices of the 7. So that's how they are defining additionality within the terms of the original funding that they received. That's different than additionality if you're thinking about carbon markets or different kinds of additionality. As far as where the gigatons of carbon number comes from, they're utilizing the Comet Farm app, which is established out of USDA and the research being done currently at University of Colorado with soil carbon sequestration. So they are approximations. They are not actually like measuring through either soil sampling or through remote sensing of actually how much carbon they are sequestering. So you can't attribute carbon reductions in like more literal terms.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for a great presentation. I know that you mentioned the corporate stakeholders and that they're primarily interested in this program just because of their corporate social responsibility. Can you talk about the stakeholders in a more colloquial sense, as in the farmers and everyone impacted by this? Why are they participating in this program? What is their core objective?
So for the farmers, one thing that's key to note is that since this is a pilot program, the farmers that were already participating are ones that have relationships with Star of the West. So a lot of them are have really good relationships already, and so Star of the West picked them and like reached out to them to participate in this program because they were already implementing some of these sustainable measures. And so joining the program was pretty easy, and that's why the additionality was challenging, because adding to what they were already doing wasn't always feasible, especially since the price point wasn't so enticing. but they're farmers that are just already interested in sustainability. So when we're scaling the program, that would definitely be a key thing to make sure that the incentives are enough, because a lot of these farmers, they're not necessarily thinking about the climate as much as how it's helping their farms, because having better soil is giving them better products. So even farmers that aren't necessarily the most like vocal or like identify as being like environmentally friendly are like doing a ton of practices, because over the years they've done their own research and really incorporated that into their farming. And so through the program, they definitely are able to explore new measures, but that was one thing that they already were doing, a lot of them, and the feedback was that they needed more of an incentive to keep adding.
Just to add, the other stakeholder involved is Star of the West and also the local government. So local government cares about this because we want more regenerative ag in Michigan, as we all know. And we spoke with Director Tim Boreen from MDARD, who quotes Governor Whitmer around how important this is. We also worked with Star of the West, who kind of their thoughts around this program is twofold. So they want to be able to grow their network of sustainable agriculture with the farmers, but they also need to get paid for it at the end of the day. So there's this pull through on both sides. And it's really important to mention that this program doesn't work unless brand owners like Kellogg's and Post pay for this product, which is a big hurdle for that. So when we keep saying price premium, price incentives, the farmers want to get paid, Star of the West wants to get paid, and that's actually a really big challenge right now. So just want to add.
Hello. So what is unique about winter wheat that makes it specifically, that makes it work with this program model? And can you think of any other crops that this could be applied to that have similar characteristics?
Absolutely. So I'll do part of this with Jacob. So winter wheat is special, first off, because of total addressable acres within the region, right? So there is a significant portion of this product grown. Second off, it is treated almost like a cover crop, particularly in the regions that we're looking at. So it's overwintered, which is why it's called winter wheat. So instead of having to implement cover crop adoption, you can use winter wheat essentially as a cover crop. So those were the two main reasons why I was looking at wheat. And then Jacob, do you want to talk about?
Yeah, as far as other crops, I actually neglected this. Yeah, so here we go. Basically, we took the feedback we received in interviews with the consumer packaged goods companies, the farmers, the state, as well as looking at like third-party research or academic research on like the environmental impact of different crops in the U.S. And so looking at that Venn diagram, identified corn and soy as the next potential crops because they have a high impact on the environment. They're huge commodity crops within Michigan, so very impactful for our economy. And then the other one I would say would be small grains, so oats. So wheat is considered a small grain. Oats are also a small grain. A lot of the grain mills that are set up for wheat can handle other small grains. So there's just some interoperability built into the supply chain.
Great. Quickly, one more question.
Emily actually answered my question through that one. So.
All right then. Great. Well, thank you very, very much, Team 5.